Let's do the thing. Let's do the thing. Alright, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Encounter Roleplay. My name is Will, and today, my friends, we've got another doozy. We've got a D&D documentary on Is D&D Dangerous? It's from 1985, and it's every bit as fantastic as you would hope it might be. We'll go into the depths of the darkest timeline and despair in a couple of moments here. But to start things off, we've got an hour of this, then we're going into a long march in about 45 minutes time now for 3 hours, and then we've got a D&D, part 1 of a D&D 2-shot called Banquet of the Damned, which is a Curse of Strahd themed adventure. Really looking forward to today's streams. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. If you do enjoy it, of course, follow. This week we're sponsored by Power Virtual Tabletop, which is a free virtual tabletop, good alternative to Roll20 if fancy grounds. And currently, if you click that link through the Encounter Roleplay Twitch channel or website, wherever, then you get a big old discount on it. So we'll talk more about that in a bit. But let's start this. Shall we? I think we might be ready. I should note that I've watched. Fuck you, Skype. I hate you and every sound that you ever made. I should note that I haven't watched all of this. I've watched about half of it, and that was about as much as I could stomach before this. So we're going to go through this together.
Good evening. Tonight we begin with a story about make-believe adventure and real-life violence.
Is that loud enough?
Some critics fear is a connection between the two in a game called Dungeons and Dragons. Millions of children and teenagers now play Dungeons and Dragons. They are drawn to the adventure, fantasy, and suspense the game creates.
I love this guy already. Look, that face is interesting. Hello, welcome to Dungeons and Dragons. Even Skype sighs at me. Sounded so sad. Not loud enough. Alright, we'll turn it up. I'll pause it here so I can get the levels right for you guys. It's an experience, Satan, the board game. Okay, alright. I'll go back so you guys can hear everything.
Good evening. Tonight we begin with a story about make-believe adventure and real-life violence. What some critics fear is a connection between the two in a game called Dungeons and Dragons.
He says critics. What he means is mostly fuckheads.
Millions of children and teenagers now play Dungeons and Dragons. They are drawn to the adventure, fantasy, and suspense the game creates through mythical characters and complex situations.
That's how I feel.
But increasingly, parents and psychiatrists are...
Now, this woman is my favorite. I should note that I do love her glasses and do feel quite sexually attracted to her.
warning that the game is taking some children too far into the realm of dark and violent fantasy. They wonder whether for some children, Dungeons and Dragons becomes more than just a game. Carol Jerome prepared this report.
Socks and sandals, yeah.
Okay, you enter...
They also chose potentially the nerdiest looking group of kids. I mean, it was the 80s, right? So, like, I think everyone looked a bit nerdier there. Or at least it tends to be that way in documentaries that we've watched. But it's perhaps not the most engaging game.
A very small room. And there's a large black coffin right in the center. The gate's shut behind you, slamming.
It looks like a few boys around a table, but in their minds,
It looks
they're
like it.
fantastical characters in another world, a darker world. Ole is a cavalier.
Oli is a cavalier.
Erwin is a paladin. Dennis is a ranger.
Dennis.
Mikey is an illusionist.
Oh, Mikey.
And Bill is a magic user.
Of
Nicholas
course.
is a fighter, and his little brother Matthew is a thief.
It's just like she's just calling him a fucking thief. You're a fucking thief, Mikey. They've got a lot. He's got a lot of players at this table, this young Mercer.
In today's adventure, Mike the Dungeon Master leads them to a castle where they are attacked by wolves in the woods.
What are you guys gonna do?
Dirty fucking thief, Bill.
What do you do?
Together, they meet each challenge set by the Dungeon Master according to their character, which can be good or evil. They have magic weapons and spells to use to battle men and half-humans and monsters, and each has an elaborate scoring sheet for his character, with points for wisdom and strength and the like.
And the like.
The throw of these special dice decide the outcome of battles in an intricate...
Ooh, my special dice.
intricate scoring system. Nothing is acted out. The real action is in the mind.
Nothing is acted out.
Entering the castle. So you have basically the doors are open to the castle. Sort of somebody taunting your mind.
What is this close-up? What is that close-up? That makes him look like he's mad. Or just really bored. Is that Bill the thief? God damn it, Bill! You're thinking about stealing things, aren't you, Bill? Yeah, you crazy D&D sex fiend addict.
Sort of somebody taunting your mind, saying, "Come and get me." Suddenly, 5 zombies come up, grabbing your leg. What are you gonna do?
I like to hit him with my sword +3.
You roll the dice.
I'd like to hit him with my sword +3, good lad.
Okay, you do sufficient damage and you cut off its arm, you dismember it. But you notice that the
Fucking
arm
hell.
that you cut off
That
is
was
still
quick.
hanging onto your leg.
It's not as simple as old-fashioned cowboys and Indians. The goal here is to survive each adventure.
It's not as simple as cowboy and Indians, alright guys? I know what you're thinking right now. You're probably thinking, this is probably just cowboy and Indians, isn't it? With Mikey the thief.
And gain points for killing enemy humans and monsters, and gather treasure along the way. But this medieval fantasy world is so detailed, so real, that some say it has caused
I agree,
kids
Will.
to kill in the real world.
Right, this is where we get from the kids who are basically nervous under cameras playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons to the fucking mental ladies. Like the people who are crazy and start talking about nonsense.
Games are so violence-oriented. You do not just play at the game, you become the game. You are the game.
You become the game. You are the game.
Pat Pulling's son Bink shot himself in the heart 3 years ago, hours after a suicide curse was put on his character as he played D&D, as the game is called. Notes he left linked to
Become the
suicide
game,
him.
Will.
Pat Pulling formed a group called BAD, Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons. Along with the National Coalition of Television Violence in the States, BAD documents 28 cases of juvenile murder and suicide they claim are linked to D&D. They say it's the general violence and playing with evil characters, suicide curses, and pretend human sacrifice in the game that trigger the tragedies.
Like, I mean, it has to be said that this is no different from like what happened to video games, right? Like, when a violent video game, I remember when I was growing up, like video games, there's all a controversy, like boy shoots mum because she takes Halo away from him, or you know, boy steals dad's gun after he doesn't let him play Call of Duty and murders him. You know, Call of Duty is evil. You know, World of Warcraft causes, you know, woman not to care for her child and she dies. You know, it's like, yeah, it's like people are blaming external factors for things that like are just like super like tragic and sad. You know, nothing else could be the cause of it, right? Yeah. Yeah, World of Warcraft in Asia, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah. It's like killer game debate we had in Germany when I was a kid teen. Yeah, I believe that Germany has some pretty strict like regulations on that kind of stuff compared to a lot of like Europe and England. But yeah, it's like like this is something that the media repeatedly seems to do. Like pick on something which is new and scary and blame it for something else, you know. And of course, the problem is that like the lady who's like, all of this is horrible, is because ultimately what happened to her was like her son like tragically killed himself, which is of course a terrible event. But like, you know, nowadays I think it would be less blaming a game and more like thinking of, all right, what was wrong? Is there some kind of mental health issue here? Whereas now it's like, yeah, just blame D&D, you know. So it's like funny, but at the same time it's kind of tragic.
Ironically, the publicity about one of these cases in 1979 made sales skyrocket.
It has been linked in suicide notes,
Yeah, I agree,
police
Torin.
reports, and coroner's reports. There have been recently a couple of accidental killings, one in particular related to the game where the boy thought he was a god. Therefore, he begged his brother to shoot him to prove that he was deified. And in fact, of course, the boy died.
I feel they're overreacting a lot. Like, I don't think that this game...
This guy. he's telling the truth. I think they're overreacting a lot. Say it, preach, brother.
It's death or anything. Not the way we play it anyway.
You know, I can tell the difference between reality and fantasy.
No, you can't, Mikey the thief. No, you can't. You don't know what reality is. You don't understand it. What you need to do, and what you've already done, is become the game. Become the game. Become the game.
Just about everyone I play with can.
Sure, there's bloodshed and everything, but I think it's better to shed it in the game than out in real life. My adopted daughter, the fair Irina, has been these past nights bitten by a creature called...
The game's public relations man says the children in the murders and suicides, including bink pulling, had other emotional problems already, and notes other elements like the presence of guns in the home.
There has been 0 deaths as the cause of Dungeons & Dragons. The game is played by some 3 to 4 to almost 5 million people now in Canada, in the United States, throughout the world. In fact, 15 other countries. And the game is built around cooperation.
Come on, everybody!
The Dungeons & Dragons ride!
Started in 1973 on $1,000
1985
loan,
doc.
D&D now earns $30 million a year for its Wisconsin manufacturer TSR, with spin-offs like this television cartoon series.
There is no escape from the realm of Dungeons and Dragons.
Few
Holy
girls
shit.
play it, it's mainly teenage boys. And they
It's mainly teenage boys. Why don't we get adverts like that nowadays? I want Wizards to come out with a fucking sick cartoon advert. That's what I need. This guy's been in poor movies. It's €100 on it.
can spend hundreds
Guaranteed.
of dollars on it in stores like Rigby's in Toronto, on monthly magazines, pocketbooks, guidebooks to over 40 different fantasy adventures, and miniature figurines.
Looks
And
sick.
if they like, there are D&D video games too.
Oh my god, not video games! No, it's making me evil! It's infecting my mind!
Government studies in the States confirm a cause and effect relationship between consumption of violent entertainment and increased aggression. Police are also concerned about D&D, but they say
Should
they
be.
cannot make a conclusive judgment about its role in many of the murders and suicides.
So let's just speculate. We don't really have any evidence of this, so we're just gonna pretty make up some shit and say it.
Suicides. One of the most perplexing cases happened here in St. Louis, Missouri. Last April, an 18-year-old art student named Mary Towie was killed
Yeah,
by
those minis
two
are sick,
friends, Ron Adcox and Darren Molitor. All three played Dungeons and Dragons together. Darren intensively, up to 16 hours a day, sometimes sitting up all night with his character sheets.
Sounds a lot like me, doesn't it? Hear that description again.
Two friends,
He
Ron
looks a bit like... Look, the guy on the right looks a bit like me, doesn't he? If I do a kind of...
Adcox and Darren Molitor. All three played Dungeons and Dragons together. Darren intensively, up to 16 hours
16 hours a day.
sometimes sitting up all night with his character sheets. In his confession to the FBI, Darren included his alias, Demon Sammy Sager, his D&D fighter
Hang on a
assassin
minute.
name.
That's my nickname too! No! They got me. Fucking hell.
Darren told police they were fooling around drinking at Mary's house while her parents were away, getting ready for a Friday 13th party, and tied her up to mess with her mind, then put a knotted elastic bandage around her throat and went upstairs to have a couple of beers.
God.
When they checked again, Mary was dead, the blood to her brain cut off by the bandage. Darren and Ron then stole valuables from the house, dumped Mary's body in this woods, and fled in her car. When they were caught, they were each wearing one of her earrings.
Well,
The point is,
I think we know the diagnosis on this one. It was D&D. Pretty much just the devil.
is Darren Molitor a cold-blooded killer, or did Demon Sammy Sager take over or change him?
Did Demon Sammy Sager take him over and change him? Did he make the mistake of becoming the game?
Darren's trial was first. The defense lawyer maintains that the game was a
Dickheads.
major factor in determining Darren's behavior, and he is asking for the lesser charge of manslaughter. The prosecution
Wait, is this like the defense lawyer?
trial was first. The defense lawyer maintains that the game was a major factor in determining Darren's behavior, and he is asking for the lesser charge of manslaughter. The prosecution holds that the game has nothing to do with Darren's actions and is asking for the death penalty. Pat Pulling was here to testify. She and a defense psychiatrist say there are elements here that echo D&D patterns. First, the idea itself that tying someone up is a game. The Friday 13th motif, part of the superstitious magic of D&D.
Tying someone up, that's like a game. Right? You know that game that you always play when you're a kid, the tie your friends up and leave them hanging game? Yeah. That old one. That's just like D&D, right? That's like step one in every adventure. Yeah, that makes sense, Bastian. And then the Friday 13th motif. Yeah, it's a motif. It's probably evil.
D. The messing with her mind, the robbery like plunder, the running for survival, the earring.
Doesn't this sound a lot like someone with like severe mental health issues, or like, you know, a psychopath murderer or something like that? You know, like all of that sounded pretty messed up to me. Like that sounds more like someone who's like a scary murderer rather than a D&D player, you know?
Earrings like treasure. But no testimony about the game, including Pat Pulling's, was allowed by the judge. And Darren's lawyer, Lee Patton, was angry at that, saying the court preferred an open and shut case.
In the absence of Dungeons and Dragons, in the absence of the desensitization to violence, I think he probably would have called the police or taken some other action rather than robbing and running.
What?
Darren told Lee Patton, Demon has never died, and Patton is not sure just what that means. Darren's...
Is he the lawyer or someone? You do have to wonder when like fucking science comes in, you know, like when do we just think about that for a minute, you know? The earrings have some cool magical properties, right? Yeah. Yes, he was. He's a creepy uncle, yeah. He's the guy that like wants to play D&D, you know? But he's like, it's not cool, man. Like science has spell slots. When calculating, yeah. Okay.
Parents don't know much about it, but they feel the game is partly to blame. And they say Darren was worried that being Demon might have affected him.
Yeah, that's just sad, isn't it?
And he'd sign everything, his papers, while he was going to school, as Demon, Molitor.
The prosecution is denying the testimony on the game.
I heard.
Do you think that's important that it be admitted?
Yes, I do. I feel it'll turn the whole thing around. On Darren's behalf.
Do you think they can cure D&D of someone? Like, you're ill, you need to be cured of Dungeons and Dragons. I wonder if they think that can happen. I know, yeah, the entire video is sad, but yeah, there is a certain irony to it. Some people should just be forbidden to have or raise children. That's savage.
The victim's parents feel differently.
Our own thoughts have always been that Dungeons and Dragons was totally irrelevant to the entire case. That
a man of reason.
This was a case strictly of robbery and...
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Like, that this guy, who is the father of the victim, is saying, well, no, it's not D&D. It's, you know, this is just someone who's, like, ill, or, you know, it's robbery and you know, criminal intentions rather than Dungeons and Dragons, whereas the parents... Oh, yeah, okay.
Homicide and nothing else. These were two people who wanted money in a car and were willing to do just about anything to get it, and did.
These police and FBI agents were struck by how coldly Darren talks about the killing, and tend to believe he is just plain guilty. The judge agreed.
I tend to believe he's just plain guilty, really. That's my prognosis. Just guilty. That's all we need to worry about.
And ruled that Dungeons and Dragons had nothing to do with the death of Mary Towie. The jury found Darren Molitor, alias Demon Sammy Sager, guilty of first-degree murder, a life sentence, but no death penalty.
As you near the castle, 2 of the stone gargoyles come from above and swoop down and try and attack you.
The crucial point is...
Arrest them all! Lock them up! I know what you're thinking there, Mikey. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I bet I could steal some shit from this film crew. Yeah, you've become the game, haven't you, Mikey, you little thief? Yeah, knock him away. It's only a matter of time.
Can a game create psychosis? Or is someone like Darren Molitor an accident waiting to happen, with or without the game? Supporters of D&D suggest it might even keep psychosis under control, providing an outlet.
Can I give him a proper burial?
Mikey, he's trying to bury people. Mikey, you've gone too far. You've become the game, Mikey. You're trying to bury people. Now, because he's buried someone in imagination, he's gonna do it in real life. You're gonna bury your mom, aren't you, Mikey? That's what you're thinking. Yeah. You're gonna steal your mum because you're a thief, and then you're gonna bury her.
But the killings and suicides are extreme cases of the issue.
You're telling me?
Matt cried for days when his character died, and Bill's mother says at one point he got too involved.
All right, Bill, you gotta chill, buddy.
I became concerned, and I spoke to the dungeon master about his behavior in the club. And he did admit that my son seemed to be becoming the character, taking on characteristics of his character. And I felt the same way.
I don't care, I want to bury him.
He'd not go to the game for a while, and he agreed.
Here in Orangeville...
What a fucking reasonable thing for that boy to do. Let's probably say more. Let's probably say more. He's gone down the darkest timeline of Mikey. There was a post on Convicts Playing D&D on Twitter today. That's a fantastic piece that I'll link here in a second, which is about people reintegrating into society after being convicted of crimes through Dungeons and Dragons. It's well worth a watch. It's a very uplifting piece, which I'll link now.
Another case raised the same questions. A 14-year-old boy, who cannot be named because he is a juvenile, strangled 2 young friends in this schoolyard.
But it was Mikey.
It was brought out in this Orangeville courtroom that the young defendant was deeply involved in playing Dungeons and Dragons and was in fact a dungeon master. But his preoccupation with the game was not considered a determining factor in forming his behavior, only typical of it. He was judged to have an obsessive-compulsive mental disorder and was acquitted by reason of legal insanity. The boy will be under care in a psychiatric institution for as long as necessary.
That is kind of scary. But it is a bit like saying, you know what, they all had one thing in common. They all owned a spatula. And I think that might be the one true connection between all of this. And it's like people say, yeah, you know, those spatulas, they're pretty dangerous. You could do a lot of things with those spatulas, yeah. Good lord. They all had hair, fucking lunatics! They all liked jam, and that is just too far for me. That's just one step too far.
The game goes on. D&D has been banned in some Canadian schools, but is used by others like this one in programs for gifted children. Some teachers feel this role-playing is valuable social interaction, and say it even improves reading and mathematics skills and knowledge of mythology and history. Much depends on the dungeon master, the group leader who controls the scenario,
yeah, that
putting
dark
in as
figure.
much or as little blood and gore as he likes. Here, Denny...
I'm gonna put a lot of blood into this. Is that Denny?
...is the dungeon master.
Good on you, Denny. I bet he looks like that now, but he's gonna put his hood up in a minute when he comes to Dungeon Master. Oh yes, welcome. You don't know this, but I've got a spatula and I ain't afraid to use it.
Well, it gives you a great sense of control and power over other people.
Wow, that's pretty insightful, isn't it, Danny? To a lot of the the fuckheads out there. That was rather insightful of you, Denny. Thank you for that.
Because, like, you can
Actually.
determine what happens to the characters. And it's really kind of neat.
Fun is evil.
The feeling of power you get from it.
Does the game encourage or even create Denny's love of power, or is it a healthy outlet for it?
In the manual,
You love power, don't you, Denny? You love power so much. You're gonna rule the world with all that power. He's on a fucking power trip, is Denny. He's gonna go down to Denny's in a minute. He's gonna fucking order everything in there, and he's gonna fucking make him pay.
Itself, you warn the kids not to get their characters mixed up with themselves.
It's not a warning. All it is saying is that you understand. This is a game, and you're playing a character, and that's it.
Pat Pulling is suing
Unlimited
TSR,
power.
the teachers who conducted the game in her son's school, for $10 million. She wants research into the D&D phenomenon.
We would like to see the...
Surprisingly, not a lot of research has been done into the D&D phenomenon because it's they have the energy.
These violent games, such as Dungeons and Dragons, taken out of toy stores and not pushed in school systems and
Damien from the
remained to
Omen.
the adult population.
Well, I think the parents should get into the game to see how it is, and then they can start judging
Good on you, son.
if they should let their child play or not.
Right.
I only play here, and when I leave the store, I leave the game in the
Preach.
store. I go out and into life.
Into life. I like
Bury the
that.
body
I go out
properly.
into life.
Perhaps this is the crux of the matter. How we deal with the undeniable love of violence in our species. D&D has taken it a step beyond even TV,
It's gone.
movies,
It's-
and books, into the inner mind.
It's gone beyond, into the mind. Because when you watch a movie or you read a book, it's not in your mind, you see. It's not in your mind. It's just in your eyes. That's the key difference. It's the key difference. So when I watch a movie, I'm not in any way influenced by it. I play a video game. It's only in my eyes. Problem with Dungeons and Dragons is it's in my fucking mind.
Millions enjoy that voyage, but we don't really know how many others find unsuspected dragons in their psychic dungeons.
What is that fucking sentence? I found an unsuspecting dragon in my psychic dungeon.
That
Let's do that
voyage,
again.
but we don't really know how many others find unsuspected dragons in their psychic dungeons. How then do we deal with our demons?
Psychic
As
dungeons.
you're walking over the drawbridge, the old rotten wood gives way beneath your feet, and you fall.
The slow
1,500 meters.
The slow zoom.
So you have died.
No!
I'm sorry.
No!
But it's life.
Evil!
For the Journal, this is Carol Jerome in Toronto.
Fuck you, Carol.
Dungeon Master.
In my fucking psychic dungeon, I found an... Oh, I didn't suspect this dragon to be in my psychic dungeon over there. Sexual fantasies, yeah. Oh, man. Where does he find this stuff, right? Ah, good lord. Monopoly is a gateway game, yeah. Fuck you, Carol. Oh, but I want dragons, and I demand a psychic fucking dungeon. And if I do not get one, I swear to God, I'm gonna tie someone up and murder them. Because I need the game. I need it. It's all that matters. Oh, good God. This little kid Denny as well. I thought Denny spoke perhaps some of the most truth in all of this documentary. As well as the guy who was like, why don't the parents just play it? Like, that makes so much sense. People are scared of that which they do not understand. Don't become the game. No, I'm being sucked in, guys. I'm becoming the game. It's only a matter of time.
Control and power over other people. Because, like, you can determine what happens to the characters. And it's really kind of neat. The feeling of power you get from it.
Maybe Denny shouldn't have said all that, but he did come across as a little bit power hungry, didn't he? That face is, not one that you'd forget. He's a bit like a young Anakin, really, isn't he? Control and power over other people. Reported for satanic activity, yeah. It's a bannable offense on Twitch these days. Shave off your mustache of evil. And don't become the game unless you enter the psychic dungeon. Right, okay, that's where my mistake was previously. Yes, the feeling of power you get when you slaughter gathered family of orphans, that's right. That is the face of nightmares, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I thought, like, this guy, I wanna watch this guy again, the guy who was the defense lawyer who was upset about something. I was a bit confused by what he was saying because I think it may have been, and this is just a suspicion, utter shit.
Was allowed by the judge, and Darren's lawyer, Lee Patton, was angry at that, saying the court preferred an open and shut case.
Well, you know the way that you can get all your DM privilege nowadays? You can buy them on D&D Beyond for a small subscription. And you can get that power, and you can play with advantage, like the devil!
In the absence of Dungeons and Dragons, in the absence of the desensitization to violence...
Desensitization to violence, okay. Danny went through rehab. No one kid should have all that power.
I think he probably would have called the police.
Is that, like, you know, good enough, though? In the, like, this one man's theory, which doesn't sound very concrete, in the absence of D&D, in the absence of the desensitization to violence, I think he probably wouldn't have done it. Like, what kind of diagnosis is that? You know, I think he might not have done it if D&D wasn't there. Yeah. Yeah, no, that sounds good. No, I don't reckon he would have done. Nah, I reckon he wouldn't have. Yeah, do that.
Or taking some other action rather than robbing and running.
Darren told Lee Patton Demon has never died, and Patton is not sure just what that means. Darren's parents don't know much about it, but they feel the game is partly to blame, and they say Darren was worried that being Demon might have affected him.
Being Demon.
And he'd sign everything, his papers, while he was going to school, as Demon Molitor.
The prosecution is denying the testimony on the game.
I heard.
Do you think that's important that it be admitted?
Yes, I do.
I mean,
I feel it'll turn the whole thing around.
Yeah, I think that what this is like the parents being like, "Oh God, how do we come to terms with the terrible thing which our child has done?" You know, the taking of a life, which is, you know, the word, pretty much, you know, in terms of society, one of the worst things that you could do. You know, murdering someone in cold blood is, you know, it's certainly up there, right? You know, it's certainly not great. And trying to reconcile that with some kind of external factor to blame, you know, like, because admittedly it must be very difficult to accept that as a person, you know, like, that must be very difficult to get your head around and come to accept. Whereas, interestingly enough, the other parents, the parents of the victim, are like, well, yeah, it's probably just like this guy was unstable and a murderer, you know. What would have happened to Perkins? That's the darkest timeline. How often do you see or hear friends or family murderers say they're not like this? Yeah. Man, we're going CSI on this shit.
On Darren's behalf.
Darren's behalf.
The victim's parents feel differently.
Our own thoughts have always been that Dungeons and Dragons was totally irrelevant to the entire case.
I mean, they don't really have an agenda of that, do they?
Of robbery and homicide and nothing else.
Enhance. Become the game.
People who wanted money in a car and were willing to do just about anything to get it, and did.
These police and...
Yeah, if you go on a murder spree, you're gonna blame me. That's fine, man. You can do that. You can... There'll be a 2017 documentary by the BBC. This man, Will Jones, he spends an unhealthy amount of time in a world of imagination. He can't even separate real life and fantasy, and therefore he must be the devil. And he looks a little bit like this convicted murderer who did the same thing in the past. Where's his face? I want to find that guy, because he did look suspiciously like me, which I'm a little bit worried about, to be honest. Was it that guy? Okay. There was a couple of them that they referenced as clear murderers, but yeah. This kid as well. And then fucking Mikey, who's just trying to fucking bury people over and over. What are you doing, Mikey? Stop trying to bury people, Mikey. It's not okay. It's not okay. But yeah, I mean, gonna blame Will Wheaton if I go on a spree. That'll Ben counter for no rain or grey nights. A fucking leather jacket. Yeah, it's denial of your own, you know, of your own sanity or trying to come to terms with all the terrible things that I've done.
Sure, there's bloodshed and everything, but I think it's better to shed it in the game than out in real life.
This guy talks a lot of sense, you know? Yeah, maybe I've modelled myself after him. If I had slightly longer hair, I could do that, really, couldn't I? I could become whatever this guy was called. I could talk about, you know, make love, not war, man.
My adopted daughter, the fair Irina, has been these past nights bitten by a creature called...
The game's public relations man.
They all look like they're having fun. There's kids in a basement having fun. BBC disappoint me. This is CBC. This is Canada. This is Canada to blame, so we can blame Canada for this one. Mike, you need to stop this before it gets out of hand. You just continue burying people, and it's just not okay. Will Jones broadcasts his psychic dungeon on his evil website Twitch. It sounds just like the headline. Yeah, I can see it now. Oh man, we need to give you feathery bangs. Ooh yeah, hey, make one too. I am his reincarnation. It is Matt Mercer. Yeah, blame Canada. Yes, yes, yes. It's the one true evil, the one true source of all of our. See what people in comments said. Guy said, "Lol, they jump from one game to another as the years go by." Yellow 6153 says, "Only dangerous if you swallow the dice." Oh god, that guy is very angry. The next guy is using a lot of expletives towards that lady. But to be honest, I did say fuck Carol, and I do stand by that. But my favourite part about this, which maybe should be a new host gif,
our demons,
is the slow
As
zoom.
you're walking over the drawbridge, the old rotten wood gives way beneath your feet.
The
and
slow
you fall
zoom.
1,500 meters down. So you have died.
So you have died.
Life.
For the Journal, this is Carol Jerome in Toronto.
She's in Toronto. I'm going there. I'm going to Toronto in 3 weeks' time. Fuck me, guys. Maybe I can meet up with Carol. Maybe I can meet up with her and we can just chill out and talk about how she ruined Canada about 20 years ago. I wonder if the camera team were all had to plug up black curtains and tablecloths. Yeah, I do wonder if they actually play in a basement like that, or if they kind of set up a studio for them. I wonder if they kind of did a little bit of mood lighting to help them out a little bit, you know. This looks really old. It's from 1985, Pumpkin. I can link it to you here. If you want to go leave a like, a dislike, a comment, or just report it. Although I don't encourage you to report it, but because I quite enjoy watching it, to be honest. And it's just nice to have these reminders, you know. Blame Carol. All right, maybe Carol ruined Canada. Yeah, maybe Carol ruined Canada. We've heard that the Christian right, which I'm a part of in the States, also went after D&D. Yeah, there's another video, we have watched it before, which I think might be in the side somewhere. Which is about, he was like a TV evangelist guy and he's going at D&D. It was quite funny. But it was, again, on the other one that we watched a while back, it was this guy who was, who had a history of mental health issues and a history of drug abuse. So he was a drug addict and he had mental health issues, which, you know, goes hand in hand. But he was saying in this documentary that, yes, D&D was to blame, which is a little bit funny coming from him because you're thinking, right, so you've got, you know, you've been convicted of a lot of crimes. You're a drug addict and, you know, you've got a lot of mental health issues. And he was like, yeah, it's D&D, basically. So, yeah. But in a much more southern accent. The Canadian visa form is, do you play D&D, and if so, are you a DM? Yeah. This video needs more dislikes. We need to yeah, I do need a slow zoom. I do, yeah, just on my eyes, preferably. Need to find that clip of the preacher. I'll go try and find it. I think it's something like D&D is Satan, something like that. Yes, Satanism Unmasked. And we've watched this one plenty. I think maybe once, maybe twice. I don't know. We might play a clip from it before. But this one
Spotlight interview features Klein Taylor, who was 10 years old when his cousins introduced him to a game, Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and
In the
Dragons.
8th grade, he started drinking and doing drugs, and it was during that time that he met a friend, Snake, who introduced
his friend is called Snake. That's all.
him to Satanism. He joined a satanic group known as the Sons of Satan. The group had grown in size to nearly 1,500 people, some as young as 11 years old.
I love the slow walk.
Like in D&D, they
Like
have
question.
witchcraft
Thank you,
and stuff like that, which is a part of Satanism too. I just took stuff from Dungeons and Dragons and used it as reality. I started liking the power, to it that it gave me as I was killing things.
Oh my god! He likes the power! No. No, Denny! Denny! Denny!
Likes. Here, Denny is the dungeon master.
Well, it gives you a great sense of control and power.
No! Denny, no!
And the power,
Oh my god, the power! The power!
Over other people. Because, you can determine what happens.
He became the game!
And it's really kind of neat. The feeling of power you get.
The feeling of power you get.
Power, to it that it gave me as I was killing things,
No.
killing people, animals. The more I played Dungeons and Dragons,
Look
and
what
the more I
happened
got
to you,
involved in
Denny.
Satanism, they both become just about the same to me. The more I'd, looked into the groups and,
oh my god,
listened to them, the more it fed my mind, like, hey, suicide is the way, partying, drugs,
Partying,
and
drugs.
everything. And I started doing drugs and stuff.
Really?
Motley Crue's Shout the Devil tape had a big influence on me.
Let's cast aside the heavy drug abuse and addiction, and let's just talk about Dungeons and Dragons and Satan, pretty much. Yep, that's just about it.
The song Shout the Devil, and in the beginning part, Shout the Devil part, it said, be strong, destroy and shout at the devil. And then in the beginning it said, we shall rule the afterwards forever. So
Oh my
I just
God.
figured, join Satan and, you'd have the power.
So I just figured you should pretty much just join Satan, and then it would be sorted. So that's pretty much what I did. I just went and joined that there Satan guy. Oh, it's fantastic. And I want to play briefly a clip who I believe is a guy who's a convicted murderer. And it's very, this quick bit of the interview is very sort of scripted. It's like, is Dungeons and Dragons bad, Mr. Murderer? And he goes, that's right, yes it is. It's why I killed people.
Wrong. D&D is morally deficient. It's
Three-time convicted murderer, Death Row, Oakland State Penitentiary, Sean Sellers.
spiritually corrupt. It is educationally evil. It teaches
Educationally evil. Educationally evil. Yeah, maybe that's where I went wrong there.
evil, and it is potentially dangerous. And the road to the ideals it represents leads to destruction, and that's the only place they lead. I should know.
Movies of
I should know. Educationally evil. You heard it here, folks. You heard it here, rather. Well, I think that's pretty much. Thank you, Gilly, for the cheer as well, by the way. Pretty much all you need to know about Dungeons and Dragons and evil. We now know what happened to Denny. Denny became Clive, who joined a Satan cult, got on drugs, and started killing babies. Yeah, good documentary. Thank you, Canada, for that one, and Carol, the two of you. You guys did a good job, and good on you guys. It's been a pleasure. Alright, so we're gonna head into